There are moments in life when silence feels heavier than noise, moments when prayers seem to rise into the air but return unanswered, when faith is tested not by suffering alone, but by the quiet, the absence of clear direction, reassurance, or visible signs. Psalm 23 speaks directly into this sacred tension, not as a distant poem, but as a living declaration for those who walk through silence with questions in their hearts. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. This opening line is not written for times of abundance only. It is a confession meant for valleys, pauses, and seasons when clarity has not yet arrived. To call the Lord your shepherd is to acknowledge guidance even when the path ahead is not fully visible. A shepherd does not abandon the flock simply because the terrain becomes difficult or the night grows quiet. His presence is constant, even when his voice is not immediately heard. Silence does not mean absence. In the spiritual life, silence often signals proximity rather than distance. A shepherd walks close to the sheep, not by shouting constantly, but by remaining near, attentive and watchful. Psalm 23 reminds us that faith is not sustained by constant explanations, but by trust formed in relationship. When God is silent, he is not indifferent. He is leading in ways that shape the heart before they comfort the mind. Many believers struggle during seasons when nothing seems to move forward. Prayers feel repetitive. Progress feels slow. Yet this psalm gently reframes what guidance truly looks like. The shepherd provides not always by removing uncertainty, but by ensuring that even in uncertainty, nothing essential is lacking. I shall not want does not mean I will always feel satisfied. It means I will not be abandoned. There is an invitation hidden in this truth, an invitation to remain instead of withdrawing, to stay spiritually present instead of growing distant, to continue listening even when answers do not arrive immediately. This psalm teaches that the shepherd's work is often quiet. Growth happens beneath the surface. Direction unfolds gradually, and trust matures in the waiting. In silence, the soul learns discernment. It learns to recognize God, not only in words, but in stillness, not only in resolution, but in endurance. Psalm 23 does not rush past this reality. It establishes it as the foundation of peace. Before green pastures and still waters are mentioned, there is relationship. Before restoration, there is belonging. If this message resonates with where you are right now, allow yourself to pause with it. Let these words settle, not as information, but as reassurance. You are not lost because the way feels quiet. You are being guided, even now. Sometimes the most faithful step is simply choosing to remain under the shepherd's care, trusting that his silence carries purpose. Stay with this psalm, let it accompany you, let it speak slowly, and as you remain here, attentive and open, allow your heart to stay aligned with what God is forming within you, even before you see where he is leading. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. These words from Psalm 23 reveal a truth that is often misunderstood. Rest is not a pause from God's guidance. It is part of it. Many people equate spiritual movement with constant action, visible progress, or emotional intensity, but the shepherd's wisdom operates differently. Sometimes the most deliberate direction God gives is an invitation to stop, to rest, to be still. Green pastures are not accidental places, they are chosen. A shepherd leads the flock there intentionally, knowing when the sheep are too tired to keep walking safely. Rest, in this sense, is not weakness, it is protection. When life becomes overwhelming and clarity feels distant, God may be guiding you not toward more effort, but toward restoration. Still waters carry the same message. Sheep cannot drink from rushing streams. The noise and movement frighten them. So the shepherd finds calm waters, places where the sheep can drink without fear. Spiritually, this reflects how God nurtures the soul. In seasons of silence, he often quiets the environment around you so your heart can receive what it needs most: peace, renewal, and strength that does not come from striving. Many resist this kind of guidance. We want answers quickly. We want signs that feel dramatic and unmistakable. But Psalm 23 gently reorients our expectations. God does not always lead by acceleration. He leads by care, by slowing us down when continuing forward would cause harm, by restoring us when fatigue clouds judgment. Silence then becomes a shelter, not a punishment. There is something deeply intentional about being made to lie down. It suggests trust, allowing yourself to stop even when you feel responsible for everything continuing. It means accepting that God's work does not depend entirely on your constant motion. The shepherd remains attentive while you rest. His watchfulness does not pause just because you do. If you are in a season where progress feels stalled, consider this. Perhaps you are not delayed. Perhaps you are being restored. Green pastures are not places of inactivity. They are places of preparation. Strength is renewed quietly. Clarity returns gradually, and faith deepens when the soul learns that it is safe to rest in God's care. This psalm invites a response, not of effort, but of surrender. To allow rest without guilt. To trust that God's silence is not neglect, but focus. He is tending to what is fragile. He is strengthening what has been strained, and he is doing so with precision and compassion. Take a moment to remain here with these words. Let them redefine how you view stillness. You do not need to force clarity. You do not need to rush resolution. The shepherd knows exactly where you are and exactly what you need in this moment. As you stay attentive to this message, allow your heart to remain open to the quiet work God is doing. Rest is not the end of the journey. It is how the shepherd ensures you are ready for what comes next. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. This line from Psalm 23 reveals something essential about how God works in seasons of silence. Before he explains the path, he heals the heart that must walk it. Restoration comes first. Direction follows. The shepherd understands that a weary soul cannot discern clearly, and so his guidance often begins beneath the surface, where wounds are mended and strength is quietly rebuilt. Restoration is not dramatic. It does not always feel immediate. Often it unfolds gradually, almost unnoticed. Yet it is one of the most profound works God performs. When clarity feels distant, when purpose feels blurred, it may be because God is repairing what exhaustion, disappointment, or fear has worn down. Silence becomes the space where this healing can occur without distraction. To restore the soul is to return it to alignment, with truth, with trust, and with God's presence. It means lifting burdens that were never meant to be carried alone. It means re-anchoring identity, not in outcomes or answers, but in relationship. Psalm 23 reminds us that God's leadership is never rushed. He does not force movement before the heart is ready. The phrase, "for his name's sake," adds another layer of meaning. God's guidance is not arbitrary. It is consistent with who he is. Even when the road feels unclear, his direction is shaped by faithfulness, not impulse. When he leads you in silence, it is not because he is uncertain. It is because his timing is purposeful. There are paths that look right, but drain the soul, and there are pauses that feel confusing, but protect it. The shepherd chooses righteousness not merely as moral correctness, but as a way of life that sustains the heart. He leads you where your faith can endure, not just where your expectations feel satisfied. Many people seek immediate reassurance during silent seasons, but Psalm 23 teaches a deeper confidence, trusting that restoration itself is evidence of guidance. If your heart is being softened, if your faith is becoming more resilient, if your dependence on God is growing rather than fading, then you are being led, even without clear signs. This moment invites reflection. Look not only at what you lack clarity about, but at what has quietly changed within you. Are you becoming more patient, more aware of God's presence, more grounded in trust rather than control? These are not accidents. They are markers of restoration. Remain attentive to this work. Let the shepherd complete what he has begun. You do not need to force understanding. You do not need to rush decisions. The path will become visible in time, but the soul must first be strong enough to walk it. As you stay with this psalm, allow yourself to trust the process unfolding within you. Restoration is not a detour from guidance. It is the foundation of it. And even now, in this quiet season, the shepherd is leading you with intention and care. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. This is perhaps the most powerful declaration in Psalm 23, not because it denies darkness, but because it redefines it. The psalm does not promise avoidance of valleys. It promises presence within them, and often it is in these valleys that God feels most silent, not absent, but quiet in a way that tests trust at its deepest level. A valley is not a destination, it is a passage. The psalm is clear, you walk through it, yet when fear rises and clarity disappears, it can feel endless. Silence amplifies uncertainty, questions grow louder, but the shepherd does not change his position when the terrain becomes dark. His nearness does not depend on visibility. The shadow of death is not death itself. A shadow has no substance unless something real stands behind it. What gives the shadow its shape is not the danger, it is the presence of light. This subtle truth shifts everything. Even in your darkest season, the shepherd's presence is what defines the moment, not the fear surrounding it. Notice the shift in language here. Earlier, the psalm speaks about God. In the valley, it speaks to God. You are with me. Silence often draws prayer inward, making faith more personal, more intimate. When explanations fall away, relationship remains. The shepherd may not explain the valley, but he walks it with you. Fear loses its power not because circumstances change immediately, but because presence reframes reality. God's quiet companionship steadies the soul. His guidance may not come as instructions, but as reassurance, a steady sense that you are not walking unprotected. The rod and the staff are symbols of both correction and comfort. They are not weapons used at a distance. They are tools held close. This reflects how God works in silent seasons. He does not shout from afar. He stays near. He guards. He redirects when necessary, and he comforts in ways that do not always require words. If you find yourself in a valley right now, resist the urge to interpret silence as abandonment. Psalm 23 offers a different interpretation. Silence can be the sound of God walking beside you, close enough that words are no longer necessary. This is an invitation to remain, to keep walking even when the path is dim, to trust that the shepherd sees what you cannot yet see. The valley is not proof of failure. It is often the place where faith becomes unshakable. Stay present with this truth. Let it settle deeply. You are not walking alone. You are not unseen. And this moment, as difficult as it feels, is not outside the shepherd's care. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. This statement in Psalm 23 is both unexpected and profound. It does not speak of escape, removal, or immediate victory. Instead, it reveals a shepherd who provides nourishment and dignity while conflict still exists. God's provision does not wait for opposition to disappear. It appears quietly, steadily, right in the middle of tension. A table is a place of rest, not urgency. It suggests intention, care, and abundance. To prepare a table in the presence of enemies is to declare that fear does not control the environment. God does. Even when threats remain, even when questions are unresolved, the shepherd ensures that what sustains you is not withheld. Silence often accompanies this kind of provision. God does not always announce his work. He simply sets it in place. Strength arrives before you realize how much you needed it. Peace settles in without explanation. Confidence grows not from circumstances changing, but from being sustained while they remain. This image challenges expectations. Many people pray for enemies to be removed. Psalm 23 shows that God sometimes chooses a different path, one that builds resilience instead of avoidance. By providing in the presence of opposition, God teaches trust that is not dependent on external calm. The table also represents identity. You are not treated as someone under threat, but as someone honored. God's care is not reactive, it is deliberate. He does not rush you through the valley. He invites you to remain nourished within it. There is a quiet strength in this provision. It teaches the soul to remain steady even when surroundings are unstable. God's silence here is not distance, it is confidence. He is not anxious about what surrounds you. He knows exactly what he is sustaining within you. If you are facing pressure, criticism, or resistance, let this image reshape how you interpret your experience. The presence of challenge does not mean the absence of blessing. If you are still being strengthened, still being nourished, still being guided, then God is actively at work, even if he has not removed the difficulty yet. Remain attentive to what God is placing before you. Sometimes the provision is subtle, a renewed sense of purpose, a moment of clarity, a calm that does not logically belong to the situation. These are not coincidences. They are signs of the shepherd's careful attention. Stay with this truth. Let it ground you. You do not need to fight for survival when God has already prepared what will sustain you. Trust that his quiet provision is enough, not just for now, but for what lies ahead. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. In Psalm 23, this moment marks a shift from survival to abundance, not the kind that draws attention, but the kind that sustains deeply. Anointing with oil was an act of honor, healing, and protection. It soothed wounds, restored strength, and signified belonging. In seasons of silence, God's abundance often arrives this way, quietly applied, deeply effective. Oil does not shout. It seeps in. It covers what is tender. It restores what has been strained by long journeys and difficult terrain. Spiritually, this speaks to how God ministers to the inner life when words are few. He does not always explain what he is doing, but he strengthens you for what you are still walking through. Anointing also speaks of identity. To be anointed is to be recognized, set apart, cared for intentionally. Even when you feel unseen by circumstances, the shepherd's attention remains precise. Silence does not erase purpose. In fact, it often clarifies it. God tends to the soul not only to heal it, but to remind it who it belongs to. My cup overflows does not suggest excess for display. It speaks of sufficiency that surpasses fear. It is the quiet realization that you have more than you thought, more strength, more resilience, more grace than the moment seems to require. Overflow here is not loud celebration, it is steady confidence. This abundance does not depend on ideal conditions. It exists even when the valley has not fully passed, even when opposition still lingers. God's generosity is not reactive, it is consistent. He provides not only what you need to endure, but what you need to remain grounded and faithful. If you are in a season where clarity is still forming, let this truth reshape your expectations. God may not be changing everything around you yet, but he is fortifying everything within you. The anointing is evidence that you are being prepared, not overlooked. Remain attentive to what is quietly increasing in your life. Peace where anxiety once ruled. Patience where frustration once dominated. Trust where fear once whispered the loudest. These are signs of overflow that only the shepherd can produce. Stay with this psalm. Let it remind you that God's silence is not emptiness. It is often the space where abundance is poured carefully, intentionally, without haste. Your cup is not running dry. It is being filled in ways that last. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. This declaration in Psalm 23 is not rooted in optimism, but in memory and trust. It looks back over the journey, the silence, the valleys, the restoration, and draws a conclusion grounded in experience. God's faithfulness is not occasional, it is consistent. Even when it is not immediately recognized, it remains active, shaping every step. The word follow carries weight. It does not mean appear once and disappear. It means pursue, accompany, remain close. Goodness and mercy are not distant promises waiting at the end of the path. They walk with you, even when your awareness of them fluctuates. Silence does not interrupt this pursuit. It often makes it more evident in hindsight. Many people only recognize God's mercy after passing through difficulty. Psalm 23 acknowledges this reality without shame. Faith does not require constant certainty. It requires trust that God's character remains unchanged, even when circumstances shift. Goodness here is not defined by ease. It is defined by presence, by provision in the valley, by restoration before understanding, by strength offered quietly. Mercy, likewise, is not earned by perfection. It is extended freely, sustaining you through moments of weakness, doubt, and waiting. This line invites reflection on how you interpret your own journey. Look back, not to measure success, but to notice consistency. Where were you sustained when you expected to fall? Where did peace arrive without explanation? Where did strength remain when logic said it should fade? These are traces of goodness and mercy following you. Silence does not erase God's movement. It often conceals it until perspective catches up. The shepherd's care becomes most visible when viewed across time, not just moments. As you remain with this psalm, allow it to shape how you face the future. You do not walk forward hoping God will catch up. He is already with you. His goodness is not delayed. His mercy is not conditional. They are present, steady, and enduring. Stay attentive to this truth. Let it anchor your expectations. You are not moving toward uncertainty alone. You are being followed by faithfulness, every step, every season, every silence included. And I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Psalm 23 concludes not with a change of circumstances, but with a shift of perspective. After silence, valleys, restoration, provision, and quiet abundance, the psalm settles on permanence. This final line is not about arrival at a physical place. It is about belonging, a life anchored in God's presence regardless of season. To dwell is not to visit. It is to remain. It implies continuity, trust, and relationship that is not dependent on constant reassurance. Silence, when viewed through this lens, becomes less threatening. It is no longer a sign of distance, but a space where belonging deepens. The house of the Lord is not reserved only for moments of certainty. It is where the weary return, where the questioning rest, where faith matures beyond needing constant explanation. Psalm 23 teaches that the shepherd does not guide you through silence only to abandon you afterward. His intention is permanence, a life continually held within his care. This closing declaration reframes everything that came before it. Valleys were not detours. Silence was not absence. Restoration was not temporary. All of it leads toward a settled trust that God's presence is not fragile. It does not fluctuate with emotion or circumstance. Dwelling also speaks of future confidence. It does not deny uncertainty. It outlasts it. When you commit to remain with God, even when clarity feels distant, you discover that faith becomes less about answers and more about assurance, less about control and more about communion. If you are still in a quiet season, let this truth rest deeply within you. You are not waiting outside God's presence until things improve. You are already dwelling within it. Your questions do not disqualify you. Your fatigue does not remove you. Your silence does not separate you. This psalm does not rush the soul toward resolution. It anchors it in relationship, and that is its greatest gift. When everything else feels uncertain, belonging remains. Stay with this truth beyond this moment. Let it guide how you interpret future silence. Let it shape how you face challenges yet to come. You are not moving toward abandonment. You are dwelling in faithfulness. The shepherd's care does not end when the psalm concludes. It continues quietly, steadily, faithfully every day of your life.